Hi you guys, my name is Girishiki and welcome to my beautiful channel. Please excuse my acne right now. I get so self-conscious making videos. And I just want to take the time out to express how grateful I am to interact with my followers, to share my story, to help those. Hopefully I'm helping you guys with these stories that are very personal, that I never thought I would like air out my skeletons in my closet, but I feel like it's more dear and useful to others if I just share my story, and it is actually helping to set myself free. I think this is the most happiest I've been in a long time, to have the ability to use my platform for good. But today I wanted to talk about my domestic violence experience. This is something that I feel like is very, very, very common in our society. For some reason, I'm not exactly sure why. But this is something that I feel is very common, and this is something I dealt with in my early 20s. When I decided to randomly stay with a boyfriend I was dating that I hardly even knew. And I feel like a lot of us get into situations like that where we date someone because we don't want to be alone, or we feel pressure from society or those around us, and we kind of jump into situations just not knowing any better. And that was kind of something I did when in my early 20s. It's so much to talk about, but let's see if I can stay on track with this topic. But my domestic violence experience. Okay, so let me start by I have a bunch of things to say about domestic violence. For one, it is not romantic, and I will repeat this. It is not romantic. A lot of the time, in social media, I feel like we romanticize things that aren't meant to be romanticized, such as suicide, self-harm, and domestic violence. It is not okay. Again, domestic violence is not okay. A lot of the times, it is common, and when women or men try to reach out about this topic, people deem it as okay or something to not be taken serious. But just if, for example, if you're going to someone and you're telling them that you're in a domestic violent situation, and they're saying, oh, just stick it out, or oh, it's not that serious. It is serious. Your feelings are valid. Your life is valid, and you should seek help and to get out of that situation. All right, so now that I said that, my experience, my early 20s, I was living with this boyfriend that I just jumped into a relationship with. We didn't know each other. We didn't know ourselves. And by no means, I'm not going to play the victim card. This situation happens to be on both of our parts. So I was not excluded from, meaning I put my hands on him too as well, which was wrong. And I understand that now as I grew older. Let's see where I can start this. In this particular situation, this relationship was not healthy, meaning we never saw on the same page. It was very emotionally abusive before it raised to physical abuse, meaning there was a lot of talking shit to one another, a lot of belittling each other, a lot of manipulation taking place that escalated to the physical phase. And in that time period, I was very emotionally unstable, meaning I didn't know myself, and almost everything triggered me, especially anything dealing with my insecurities. He knew how to play off my insecurities to the point where it can make me escalate or blow up or whatever, which is no excuse. But not knowing myself in that time period in my life, everything triggered me, and I didn't understand why. And coming from a abusive home and a situation that did not serve me, and going into another one did not help. I had no time period to get to know myself, to even be talking about a long-term commitment. So it started by, I just remember how it started, putting hands on each other. I guess we were driving in the car, and I hate to admit this because I don't think I ever said this to anyone. And I guess he was playing on my insecurities because I guess we were arguing about something about him, like, which is probably so stupid, but arguing about him like looking at other women or something, and he was like, well, if you weren't so insecure or something like that. And I just remember it triggered me so much so that I like started hitting him and while he was driving. And in that time, I wasn't thinking, I was just thinking so much so, like, I was so hurt this whole time. And those words just triggered me to, you know, basically hit him. And by no means is that any excuse. So that started that kind of interaction. So I guess from then on forth, it kind of escalated even more, because after that, he got aggressive. So, and then it just became a routine, really. Like, we started living with each other. Arguments turned to literal fights, fist fights, hair pulling, all these things. Now, this guy, he wasn't, he wasn't like the most masculine man. So I think that's the reason why, like, it didn't end up being like this death situation, but it can get that bad. But nonetheless, it got pretty bad between both of us, because it turned to a situation where this wasn't a couple in love. This was a couple that hated each other, basically. And when I tried to even explain this to my parents at the time, they were just like, well, you know, maybe people deserve to get their ass beat sometime, or etc. Well, they just act like it was very normal. These things, though, are not okay. And I noticed that even, like, it got to a point where I remember calling the cops one day and discussing the domestic abuse. It was not taken that seriously, unless it's like something where you can prove, like, well, I guess in a more serious case where I feel like it shouldn't have to get to that point, that for something to be taken care of. But basically, it ended up being very abusive for a long time, back and forth, to the point where I remember getting just so many notes saying, oh, your neighbors are, you know, talking, you know, your neighbors are making complaints, etc. But by the end of the cycle of living with him, I believe it was close to a year, back and forth of, like, abusing each other, you know, like getting to the point where we broke walls, ended up bruising and hurting each other really bad. It was a point to where I had a wake-up call. I was like, I don't know, it just got really bad one day, to the point where he wouldn't stop. Like, he would not stop abusing me. And that day I was just like, oh no, this is very dangerous. Like, he could potentially kill me. Like, he could take it that far. And I felt that in my heart. And I was like, well, we're getting way too comfortable with this, and, you know, we're acting like this is okay. And at that point, I had to leave. So nonetheless, I think our lease or something was up anyway around this time, but I made the decision not to stick with him wherever we were trying to go next. I ended up just going to my granddad's house or something like that. But I ended up leaving him and realizing, like, okay, we're not in love. We're both crazy as fuck. We're both, like, insane. There's something wrong with us. You know, we're not in love. All these things. And then what happened? So I ended up leaving, and that was that, really. But after the fact, after learning and growing, I'm like, well, people who are in love, one, they don't hit each other. And I know that sounds so stupid, because I feel like that's supposed to be, like, common sense. But when you grow up in cycles and backgrounds and family that doesn't really take domestic abuse seriously, it really is a common thing. And sometimes you wonder why you do things, and you don't realize, like, oh, I came up from this conditioning, this background. And it's no excuse, but until you're self-aware, until you have time to self-reflect and grow and to be on your own, and to truly understand, not someone just telling you, oh, it's bad, then you won't know that domestic violence is a bad thing. So um, after some time apart and self-reflection, I understood just because my parents are acting like this is okay, it is not okay. To me, I was like, well, those who love each other do not put hands on each other. They don't even like belittle each other. They don't call each other's name. They don't hurt each other to the point where it's hateful. And to me, I came to terms with that is not love. Whoever else is saying that's love, that's bullshit. And I feel like we tend to tell people to stay in relationships that are hateful, and we call it love, when there's it's far from it. So again, a lot of you guys may have heard after the fact, after everything, a bunch of more stuff that went down, I ended up splitting from him, being celibate for some years, and being single and self-reflecting. It took a lot of that to figure out myself and to even understand what went down. For one, I understood that I wasn't supposed to jump into that relationship. Two, I didn't know myself. Three, I didn't know him. Four, you have to understand what love is, and to love yourself, to be honest, to understand what love is not. It did teach me what love is not. Even though I'm single now and I'm figuring out what love means, what true love means to me, and a lot of that has to do with self-love. I'm figuring out, of course, that it's not physical abuse, and that just because that's the background you came from, even that doesn't mean that's the relationship you have to settle for. And again, my case was different because it was on both of our parts. But maybe you're not in a situation where it was like that. But even so, it is not your fault. Just because these things happen or have happened does not define you as a person. I know people have sayings like once a cheater, always a cheater, or once an abuser, always abuser. But I do believe people can change, and it takes self-reflection and the wanting to grow. I'm not saying not everybody comes from the situation wanting to grow and wanting to expand and wanting to do better. But for me, it was different. Like if I were to for a long time, I didn't want to get into a relationship because of that reason, because I was like, well, I don't want the same things to play out again. I don't want to be deemed this bad person. But when it is time for me to get into a relationship, I know it would be far from that experience. But I did want to take time to self-reflect on that monster inside of me and why it was there in the first place. But yeah, if you are in a domestic violence situation, I encourage you to leave. It could be easier said than done. But briefly, how I left ultimately was understanding that it couldn't get better. It could actually result in death. Hate doesn't equal romance or love. It is hate. I kind of understood that, I had hit rock bottom. You have to understand that there's better out there. There's more out there. You have to understand too that you can survive on your own, and there's people who can help you on your journey. You don't have to do it all by yourself. You aren't a bad person if you're part of the abuse. You just have to understand that it's something in you that triggers that, or that you have to work on and discover for yourself why you're that way. It doesn't mean you're a horrible person and that you can't change. You can change. You just have to distance yourself from this situation and allow yourself to grow. Be courageous enough to be on your own for a little while to understand yourself and why all that went down. It is not, you don't have to stay in this relationship because it is not the end all be all. There are brighter days before you. You don't have to accept abuse because that is not love. Love is so much more caring and understanding, and something that you can give yourself ultimately than expecting from a man or a woman that does not love you. What else can I say? Just understand that you can get help. Just don't by all means don't stay in a situation. How do I feel after the situation? For a long time, I felt guilty and ashamed, to be honest, because it wasn't the stigma like, oh, it was all his fault. And I do feel like I triggered it some of the time. Not all the time, but still, for a long time I felt guilty and ashamed because I was part of the abuse, and I was not only the abuser, the abused, I was the abuser in this situation. And I felt ashamed, to be honest. But I'm freeing myself today. Like, I'm no longer choosing to be ashamed because that was my past. I grew from it, and I understand that I was severely unconscious in a lot of ways entering that relationship. And I feel like things happen to make us become enlightened about ourselves, meaning we may be put in certain situations to shed light on dark areas. Meaning I could, if I didn't end up staying with this guy, I may have never known that I had all these issues that could have been triggered. And since I was with him and it was brought to light, I could work on it and fix it. If you look at it in the positive light. I understand that these topics are controversial and I might get hated for them, but I have to do it. But ultimately you have to learn how to forgive myself. And if you're in a similar situation, you have to learn how to forgive yourself and the other person. I wouldn't go back to the person either if you spent even years apart and you're working on yourself, because there's reasons why we meet certain people and we leave. It's never to go back to them because that cycle has played its course. Just be compassionate with yourself. Allow yourself to grow and expand, and realize that you're not your past. You're way better off than you were then, and that true love is near and can come into your life at any moment because you have set yourself free. If you're willing to set yourself free, you just have to be courageous enough, yo. And it's not okay. I'm telling you, domestic violence is not okay. So for people who are around you who don't take it serious, fuck those people. I'm taking it serious for you. Get help, get out, ask a friend for help, for refuge, contact the hotline if you have to. I would advise you, if you could get out of the situation, just go to a family member's house that person can't find you. Cut all communication with that person. Even if they text you and blow your phone up 1,000 times, don't answer it. This is another video for a breakup even that... Because trust me, after the situation went down, this person still wanted me back till this day. But I was strong enough to not go back. And I understood that it was unhealthy. So you just have to realize that shit is nothing good can come out of that situation. And it's not love. Like, we have to stop telling people that abuse is love or people treating you bad is love. Ultimately, love is not supposed to be this complicated and shit and hurtful and painful, especially on a physical level. But yeah, this is a long ass video. I hope you guys are getting some kind of help from these videos. Feel free to ask me any questions specifically on like any other topics related to this that you want to know. Whether it's dealing with traumas, childhood traumas, abuse from family, etc. Again, I'm happy to have this platform to help out women and men that may get information from these videos. But yeah, be dope, be you unapologetically, love thyself. I'm really on a journey of self-love, more so right now. Yeah. And it's been wonderful, to be honest, and it's just about forgiving yourself, giving yourself time to grow and expand. You are worthy no matter what. Like, these bad things, these bad aspects of yourself do not paint a picture of who you are as a whole individual, and it does not mean you're that person your whole life. Understand that. But yeah, be dope, be you unapologetically. Never be ashamed to leave someone that does not serve you or isn't for your highest good. Don't let society make you feel like you have to be coupled with someone or stay with someone because they have money or stability, or make you feel like shit if you've been an abuser or abused. Because if you feel like you could change, or you know you could change and work on yourself, do so. Fuck the haters, fuck everyone else. Be dope, be you unapologetically. Have a good day. Peace.